Jonathan Kay, National Post Managing Editor for Comment. In terms of the reporters who really want to do the long-form stuff, I think the place for them is investigative journalism. Because when it comes to investigative journalism, there is absolutely no substitute for dedication, single-mindedness of task, and simply spending weeks or months on a story. Because if you look at some of the big investigative stories, for instance, that the Toronto Star has broken, those are people who, you can't be tweeting all day or blogging or doing stuff. You really have to be focused on the story. You have to get out of your office and develop sources. You have to handle confidential materials. You have to be filing Freedom of Information Act requests. You have to be doing stuff to develop the story. And the skills necessary to investigate those stories are the same now as they were 20 years ago. So there is always going to be a market for reporters who really do that old school stuff. But I think now it's more concentrated in investigative stories, whereas maybe 10 or 15 years ago, that focused approach was taken to everything from political stories to lifestyle stories to travel stories, and there's just no budget for that anymore. It's very difficult because to do a big investigative story that takes months and months, it may cost your newspaper $50,000 or $75,000. And that could be the difference between hiring or firing a copy editor for the whole year. So you have to think long and hard before you're going to do investigative stories. And to their credit, the big national outlets, Toronto Star, National Post, I think, Globe and Mail, CBC, CTV, they do still have an investigative apparatus. The biggest challenge for journalism now is that the mid-level publications, municipal dailies. I'm thinking in the United States of sort of, the Miami Herald, which just let a whole bunch of people off. The Miami Herald used to have a huge investigative apparatus for investigating not federal level stuff. The federal level stuff will always be investigated by the likes of the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times. But the municipal level stuff, where a lot of the sleaze takes place, you used to have newspapers that had thickly staffed investigative departments, and they would do the investigations. Those are exactly the outlets that are abandoning their investigative mission because it's too expensive. And so I think at the federal level, the sleaze is always going to be uncovered because there's so much currency in it. However, at the state level, the provincial level, the municipal level, I think over time you're going to see a lot of investigations that don't get conducted because more and more newspapers are ceding the news field to blogs. But a city blog isn't going to be able to do investigative research in the way that a newspaper can, because you need money, and you need lawyers, and you need stuff that blogs and social media just don't have. So it's the investigative work at the secondary and tertiary levels of government that's really going to suffer as a result of the changing format of the journalism industry.